Okay, hello everybody, welcome to a UE4 tutorial. That is an Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. What I'm going to show you today is how to put together this project right here. I'm going to have this little character. He's going to be able to walk. Yeah, you can see how he's walking. He's going to turn where he moves, and then he's going to be able to sprint. He's going to be able to aim his gun, stand still, walk, and run with said gun, and shoot these bullets in any direction while he's running, walking, climbing stairs, and all that good stuff. It doesn't seem like much, but if you are new to UE4 or game design, game programming in general, it can be pretty tough to start out. And I know there's a bunch of tutorials for UE4, but I haven't seen this specifically. So if you go to your launcher, hit launch. If you are starting out in UE4, I would suggest downloading a lot of these demo projects, especially Silly Geo if you're making a 2D game. The sample strategy game is pretty neat. Turn-based strategy I still haven't figured out. But anyway, so in your project you're going to go to New Project, and you're going to get a third-person template. This is good because I like the map. It's not set up for 2D, but you're going to want no starter content and scalable 2D or 3D. And I'll name this, what did I name my other one? Top-down test. Okay, so this will be my YouTube tutorial. Cool. So this will start making the project. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it doesn't. And I am going to have my other project open, just in case I forget how to do something. Now, there are some things that you'll need before you get started. There should be a link to the tutorial content right here. You'll have, let's see if I can zoom in, I guess not. But you will have a bunch of animations. Animations are the most time-consuming part, so I thought instead of putting them in a tutorial, I would just give them all to you. There's one for idle, one for idle aimed. Running should really be renamed to walking aimed, but I didn't do that before I uploaded it, so mind that. But the aimed ones just have a gun. Now, alright, so we get our third person thing. If you play this, you'll see you're kind of behind this freaking 3D character they have. You can jump and move around, you can jump up here. But what we want to do is delete that. Get rid of that. Cool. Now over here in your content browser, you're going to want to add a folder, and this will be my content. This is what I use for my content. We're going to need a folder for blueprints. I made a folder in my content called blueprints, and you can set the color to blue. That does literally nothing. And then we're going to need another folder for animations, if you can spell it right. And then in this animations folder, we're going to have textures, sprites, and flipbooks. Those are the basic things you'll have for 2D textures. So in our textures folder, we're going to open up our tutorial content. I'll put it on my second monitor so you guys don't have to see me opening it all the time. And we'll drag these 4 folders into here. I think I can just do it right like that. It might take a while to import these. They're 2048 by 2048, but they were originally made in 16 by 16. If that thumbnail said it's like thumbs.bd, don't worry about that. It's not important. So now we have our full 4 folders inside of our textures with all of our textures. Now if you look at these, let's go to idle. Actually, that's a bad example. Let's go to one of the walking aimed frames. This is what it looks like. This is not what the texture looks like in game. But as soon as we turn those into sprites, it'll all be okay. Now what I'm going to do here is make 4 folders in my sprites folder. One for idle, one for idle aimed, one for walking, and one for walking aimed. Cool. Now I'm going to select both of these either by clicking the first and shift clicking or control clicking on the second one, or I don't think you can't click and drag. Just select both of them, sprite actions, create sprite. Now this will create a sprite for each of those textures, and you're just going to select them and drag them into your idle sprite. Move here. You're going to do the same thing for all these. So idle aimed, sprite actions, create sprite, drag them to idle aimed, move here, walking, select all of them, sprite actions, create sprite, drag them into walking, move here, grab your walking aimed, do the same thing, create your sprites, click and drag them. It's that easy. Alright, so you can see these sprites look much better. They look like what we want them to look like in the game. You can see the aimed ones too have the little gun. Okay. So now we need to turn them into flipbooks, which are animations, because what we have now are still frames. So we select all the sprites in our animation. We create a flipbook. We drag it into our flipbooks folder, say move here. So before I get into too much detail on these, I'm going to make all of them. And based on your animations, they should be named like player idle aimed 0, player idle aimed 1. So they should be all the frames starting at 0. And then it takes this and it says player underscore walking, because that's what the total animation is called. It's a really great naming system. I like it. I like it a lot. Walking aimed, flipbooks, move here. Alright, so we have our flipbooks here, but if we click on one of these, you can see he's bouncing up and down really fast. That's just supposed to be some ambient movement. So if we go over here to the frames per second, default is 15. I'm going to type 1.5. I think that's a much more calm animation, which is something he would like when he's, not moving. Oh, another thing. This default material, we're going to want masked. Well, first, you need to show plugin content, type masked lit sprite material. You don't want masked unlit, because then it won't accept shadows or anything. So masked lit sprite material. And then for walking, I think I have about 6. That looks like a good walking speed to me. And then aimed walking 6. Lit. Now, idle and walking are all great, but what if I also want a running animation? Great thing about a running animation is it's the same as your walking animation, but faster. So I'm going to take this one, this player underscore walking, hit Control W. You see it makes it player walking 2. F2 is the shortcut to rename anything you have selected. I'm going to change this to player underscore running. Now I can come in here, I can crank up the frame rate to say 11. Now it just looks like he's walking faster. Or running. It's great. And I can do the same thing with the aimed texture. Just say running aimed. Neat, right? But with the running aimed, need to change it to 11 frames per second. Cool. So we have idle, running, walking. Sweet. So those are all the animations we need set up. So we're done with animations completely right now. In blueprints, we're going to need a character. Yes. Shockingly enough, we do need a character. So you're going to right click in your blueprints folder and say create basic asset blueprint class. Now all these are great. There's a player up here, a character, but we're going to go to all classes because we're using a plugin. I'm going to type paper character right down here at the bottom. Hit select, and this will be paper 2DC player. I don't think I used a player controller. No, I did not. So we can just name this, rename it, instead of all that, just paper character player. Now there's a few things to notice when we make an instance of this class. We have a few components. We have a capsule component for collision. Unfortunately, there's no way to change this. We have a 2D character, but he's going to be defined by a capsule, arrow component for direction, and a sprite component, which... there we go. Which we can set. So let's set our flipbook to player idle. Few issues here. It's the wrong direction. I think it's 90 and negative 90. Negative 90 that way, and you want to turn it 90 on the Z as well. Because the arrow is forward, right? Yes. Arrow is pointing at the front of his face. Nice, okay. Now next thing we're going to need to do, it's a little bit big. I guess we can scale it down to like 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. That's good. And now we're just going to adjust this capsule component until it kind of fits. I think I have it set to 45. 45. And then I have my sprite positioned a little bit forward. That doesn't fit well at all. Get back there. Let's make this 55. Alright, so that's a little bit bigger. Let's see what it looks like when I move forward. That's probably pretty good. Now this is our movement component. It'll control our character's movement. There's a max walk speed in here, which I'm going to change to 400. And so one other thing maybe I needed to change. Orient rotation to movement. Check that box too. Oops. Save. Alright, so now we have the... oh, one more thing we need to do. Go to the add component and hit spring arm. Don't need to rename it, and then get a camera. Also don't need to rename it. Drag the camera onto the spring arm, and then kind of position the camera at the end of the spring arm. It's kind of hard to do that. And then you're going to want to position your spring arm 90 degrees this way. So for like this, we want it to be facing like this. So it needs to be 180 this way. Cool. Alright. Compile that, save that. So now we have a basic character setup. So if we... well, one more thing we need to do before we can play our game with our character. You can uncheck show plugin content so it's not as messy over here. Go to the third person blueprint blueprints and the third-person game mode. And right here, default pawn class, you're going to want to select the character we just made, PC player. This will mean when we play the game, our character pops up instead of their character. That is still so loud. I don't know why. Yeah, let me turn it down here, I guess. There we go. That's not as loud. Alright. But yeah, we have a character. We can't move or anything. I'm going to position my camera a little bit higher than that, which I should do by lengthening the spring arm to about 600. Right? That look good. Yeah, character's good size. But right now we can't move, we can't rotate, we can't do anything. This is where we get into the event graph, which is the programming aspect of the Unreal Engine 4. So, first things first, we're going to deal with movement. If we go to Edit, Project Settings, and then on the engine thing we want to hit Input. Since we're using a setup blueprint, it already has some axis mappings, which are very useful for us. If you ever need to set these up, just look at one of the projects. It's not too difficult. But then we want axis event. And you'll see here in axis events, there are all of these. We want move forward. And then we want move right. So whenever I press a button that corresponds with one of the axes that are set up with one of these, it'll spark this event. Let me look here. I don't have this part memorized, even though it's the easiest part. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Get control rotation. What we're going to do first is make sure it can only move on one plane. So we're going to get this control rotation, which gives us our rotation. We're going to break the rotation with a break rot node. We're going to drag the yaw, and we're going to make rot. So, and make sure it's plugged in right. Okay. Now, next thing we need to do is get the get forward vector. Wait, rotate the world forward vector given by the given rotation. Ah, okay. Actually, that might make this a lot easier. I don't know. I'll experiment with that between this episode and next. But for the forward event, we want to get forward vector. And then for the right event, we want to get right vector. Rotate the world right vector by the given. Anyway, now we're going to add input, add movement input. And this will hook up to our forward event. Our get forward vector will go into the world direction. And then our scale value, go right down here. Target is the self. We'll be moving our self. We can copy this, paste it down here. Same thing, goes right here. The execution will go right here. And the scale will go right here. So I should probably explain a little bit about the blueprint system. The white triangle-ish things, pentagons, are execution strings. So this event will spark, and it'll activate this execution branch. Let me see if I can... No, that doesn't work. Oh, we're not. Okay. I didn't change the camera right, but so it'll spark the event, and this will add movement input based on the scale value, which is in the input panel I showed you earlier, based on this world that's based off of our rotation. Let's do the same thing if I hit A and D, and it'll move our pawn. That's all it's supposed to do. But we need to go back here to our camera, and we want to use pawn control rotation, I believe. If we play now, we do not want to do that. What did we want to do? There we go. So we need to go to our spring arm, and we want to not inherit any of these things. Still doesn't work, but you can see we're moving, but we just can't see our player, which is odd. Oh, well, maybe I should uncheck the thing that made that happen. Perfect. So now you can see we are moving, but he's not rotating. Let's see why that is. He's set to my rotation to movement. That should be it. Let me see if I missed anything in our movement components. That's for animations. Sprinting. Didn't change anything else here. Use controller rotation. Yeah, there it is. Sorry, this is a little bit unprepared, but I just wanted to do this. So we select our self up here in the top right window in our player blueprint, and we uncheck use controller rotation yaw. And this will let our player yaw around. So now you can see he's moving, he's rotating in the way he's moving. I'm just doing this with WASD. Doesn't work with the arrow keys because two of them aren't set up. But yeah, our player can walk around. So this is what I wanted to set up this episode, was just the basic animations, creating them, not utilizing them yet, and movement. So thank you so much for watching. Comment if you have any questions or you're confused, or whatever else you want to see in UE4. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Next time, speaking of, we'll be working on getting the different animations to work, and probably sprinting. Something we can fix right now real quick. You see how there's a shadow here, but when I walk over there, he's not changing colors. We're going to go to our sprite component, lighting, click cast shadow, but self shadow only. So this way, if we had self cast shadow only off, what would happen is we would see a shadow underneath us, and you would see that we're hovering above the ground. But if we turn it off, or if we turn it on, so now we don't have the shadow, and we can get a shadow cast on us. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.